Guy, when you
before I got there in 67, but 67 and 68 were the 2, 6, and 4 years.
right,
And really there were some wonderful players on those teams, but we probably lacked a little bit at quarterback. And then in 69, then all of a sudden you got Taggy and Van Bronson, and you got Jeff, and Johnny's a freshman, and it's kind of starting to fall together. And then in 69, they gave Tom the offense, switched to the I formation, which was tailor-made for Jeff, and Johnny was the wingback then in 70, and the flanker when we went to the spread. And then the rest is 33 games in a row and 2 national titles back-to-back. And we, in 70, we needed some help on the bowl day. And Stanford beat Ohio State, who was ranked above us, and Notre Dame beat Texas, who was ranked above us. And then so at literally pregame against LSU, we knew we were probably playing for all the marbles because we were the last undefeated team, though we did have the tie against Southern Cal in the Coliseum, which was really a tragedy because I actually think we significantly outplayed Southern Cal that night. I grew up in LA. I lived there till I was 12, so the USC was like, for me to score a touchdown in the Coliseum was a big deal. And Dan Schneider threw me a pass, and Johnny had a great day, and Joe Orduna had a 60-yard touchdown run, and Jeff gave him a chance, and he they were both playing back-to-back.
Who missed the extra point?
The extra point was missed by Paul Rogers. It was actually a field goal.
Any relation, Johnny?
No. Now let me tell you something, because a lot of people don't remember this, but I'm not on the extra point team or the field goal team. I'm on the sidelines. But I was paying attention because any score was a big score. And Paul Rogers was all conference. He was all conference kicker. And the snap came back on the ground, all the way back on the ground.
Yeah.
So Taggy got it on the, you could use a tee then. He got it on the tee, but I think it messed up Paul's timing just enough, and Paul missed it by about this far on the right side.
Right.
Otherwise, we beat him.
What was the feeling? Because we now know, because of what happened just a couple of weeks ago against Michigan, that the last time Nebraska was shut out at home was 1968. End of the season, pretty much against Kansas State. What was the feeling like at the end of the year? Because I'm imagining that Coach Devaney must have been under some pressure at that point, the way that season ended.
Well, I can tell you, being in Omaha, and I don't know if Johnny would realize this because he was still in high school, but after the 2, 6, and 4 seasons, there were some people that wanted to fire Bob.
Oh, yeah.
And, he'd won 3 or 4 Big 8 titles. In 65, if they'd have beaten Arkansas, they'd have been national champions. They lost 10-7 in the Cotton Bowl, blah, 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 blah. And I think by the time the end of 69 rolled around, we were a pretty good football team, especially on offense, because we'd had a year in the I formation. We managed to beat Oklahoma in Norman 44-14 after losing the year before 47-0. So we went from the worst defeat of Devaney's coaching career to a victory that I count number 1 or 2 in my experiences.
Right.
In the same place. We had to go back down to Norman the next year. And Jeff threw me a touchdown pass, and we beat him 44-14. When they took the first team out, I remember I was ranting and raving a little bit because we wanted to stay in the game. Right. And some offensive line coach said, "Guy, you're not going back in. We're not going back in." I said, "We should be in until this is over." Because they had Steve Owens carry the ball with 17 seconds left in the game. He's going to win the Heisman. and he carried the ball for the 38th time. It was 47-0
Wow.
the year before.
Yeah.
38.
So, yeah, anyway, so the bottom line is that victory was really huge. And then we pasted Georgia 45-6 in the Sun Bowl, who probably didn't need to go to a bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
They were 6-5
Right.
that year. And then Katie barred the door. We got Johnny the next year and a bunch of linemen that Tom Osborne recruited, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you got these two guys right here who were instrumental in the two greatest games in Nebraska football history to that time. That was Oklahoma down in Norman, and both of them started that day. I don't know which one deserves more credit.
Right.
But Jeff, I had 168 yards rushing.
Richie Glover. Richie got 20 unassisted tackles.
From nose guard.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, Jeff, because you obviously are going against some really good Big 8 teams, but in practice, you're going against one of the best players to ever play the position at a middle guard position with Richie Glover. Can you talk about how that made you better?
Well, really didn't play against Richie. They wouldn't let us, number one, go against
Oh, okay.
him.
All right.
And it was kind of it was a situation where the coaches were trying to keep us healthy. So you didn't have a lot of contact. But, it's
a little closer.
It's almost like years later, you get a chance to see different replays, and you see Richie was just unbelievable.
Dominant.
You don't pay much attention when the game's going on, but you get a chance just to see him in action. It's like, wow, that guy made the big difference that day.
Yeah. We don't talk enough about how great he was, Johnny, right? I mean, when you start ranking the greatest defensive lineman of all time, he's got to be there.
Yeah, Outland Lombardi and third in the Heisman.
Right.
You don't have lineman third in the Heisman, but he was just that good. And like I said, in the biggest game of all time that we've had, pretty much the game of the century, to get 20 unassisted tackles, that just speaks volumes. I mean,
From nose
that
guard.
didn't happen from nose
He's
guard.
not out on the, he's not playing linebacker. He's got his hand on the ground.
Yeah, I cut video. Our last Jet Award gala, Richie was there, and so I went through and I cut a whole bunch of video of that game, and he made plays from the hash mark to the hash mark. He was running down the line, and you know how wide they are in college, right? I mean, he was making them from both sides, running down the line of scrimmage, making tackles. It was incredible.
Playing against an All-American center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It dominated him. Yeah, without a doubt.
What was his name?
Berhaney.
Tom Brady, yeah.
Tom Brady wakes up in the middle of the night. He sees Rich Glover.
Still to the day.
I guarantee you.
Today. We talking about not then, now, and
I was talking about how your defense made you guys better, because they were so good. But for you, Johnny, kind of go over the guys you went against in high school and your neighborhood and growing up, going to Coons Park, right? I mean, how much better did that make you with all the talent that was there in North Omaha?
Well, I really think that it was the guys that came before me, like Dickie Davis, Mike Green, all these guys. I played against mostly older guys my whole life, and playing in Coons Park is where all the people from all over Omaha came to play on Saturdays and Sundays. And I was one of the very little guys that got to play every now and then. But I think it really made a difference in my career to have that type of competition early in life, because as I got older, it was nothing new. It was just expected. It was expected. We had some of the great Gail Sayers played down there.
Yeah.
Like I said, Dickie, Mike, everybody, anybody who's everybody that was playing, that was going to play anywhere in the country, started off at Coons Park.
Yeah, I think any of you, if you haven't read 24th and Glory, Dirk Chatlin's book, the fact that you had the best, in my opinion, right-handed pitcher of all time in Bob Gibson. You had one of the greatest running backs, certainly in terms of scoring in every way, in Gale Sayers. Plus, you had a Marlon Briscoe and all those guys. It still blows my mind to think all those guys were there over the course of about a 12-year period.
Right. I think it's very inspirational when you're young and you see so many people doing so many things. It's not out of the norm for you to follow in that direction, because that's the direction you're being led, that it is possible. When you're in a neighborhood or a city where you don't have a lot of people that are getting that type of exposure, then you don't see it's possible. But when they're there and they're just your neighbors, anything is possible. And I think that was really the difference for me coming up with that kind of competition, where I was never really the best. I was just struggling because I was always just struggling, trying to get in to play when these guys
And modest
were playing
too.
around me. Yeah.
Jeff, talk about the adjustment of going from McCook to Lincoln and playing there on the team. How long did it take you to adjust to the game?
Well, I guess at that time, because of the way the program was set up, you had a freshman team. So you didn't have to worry about going against, varsity players or being a piece of meat out there for somebody to beat on. So we had a freshman team. We played a freshman schedule. And by the end of that season, we knew we were pretty special. I mean, because we won all 4 games. And then as Guy was saying, they started bringing in some junior college transfers for linemen. So really my sophomore year, when we ended up that season, even though we had lost 2 games, we felt like we could be playing for the national championship by the time that season was over with. So anyhow, it was just a transition of being a freshman. You get to make that transition. Then you go to spring football. Then you get your butt beat a little bit then.
Yeah. Same thing for you,
He's
John?
right. Well, I just remember the jump was not from West Side to freshman ball. It was from freshman ball to spring ball. And I remember Jim Hawkins, who was a senior and a co-captain at the time, was a cornerback, and he was good. He was all conference. And I'm looking in at the ball, and I lose track of where he is. So he sneaks up on me. This is early in spring ball. He sneaks up on me, and I come off the ball, and he hit me in the mouth with his forearm. And I think the first thing that hit the ground was the back of my helmet. And I never lost track of those defensive backs after that. I knew where they were. If they were bump and run, fine. If they're out there somewhere playing standard back, that's a play I'll never forget, and it's a good lesson.
One of the unique things about Nebraska, Johnny, and they've done some great pieces on this. The Southwest Conference took forever to integrate. The ACC took a long time to integrate. The Big Ten did it quicker, because they were willing to do it. But Bob Devaney was ahead of his time in terms of bringing African Americans into the university. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I really didn't know the history at all. And I didn't know whether we had black players or white players or whatever. I was just interested. We had good players. Yeah. And I seen that it coming through there when I did come as a freshman, and to see the guys ahead of us that won their first conference championship in years in 1969. They hadn't won in a while. So that was a fairly decent transition coming from a freshman to go up to have an opportunity to win our conference too. And then we actually won the national championship. But I think the biggest thing is that we had backup. John Dutton and Monty Johnson that played for us, they played second team. They went on in NFL and with Hall of Famers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they played second team at Nebraska. But one of the most encouraging things is that the special teams, because at that time, if you didn't get to play first team, a lot of guys are second team, you get to play on the special team. And that was their opportunity to have a big play. So when they got in there, they did take that as an opportunity to have a big play, and we made a lot of big plays for guys that were always playing. Now, Richie and them and some of the guys did play on the special teams as well, but it was just that we really learned that football is offense, defense, and special teams.
And you prove that every time you show the video of your punt return, right? There's 8-9 blocks on that.
That one in Oklahoma, you can count them together. Everybody. I stopped calling. We used to go punt return left or punt return right. We could call punt return left. I'd go right. We call punt return right. I'd go left. So we just started, everybody get a block. So everybody got a block, and you could count them on a lot of different plays, and you would see them during our meetings on Monday, whoever didn't get a block. So you didn't really want to be one of those guys.
You didn't want to be pointed out that way.
No, you didn't want to get pointed out. So everybody really did get a block, and it puts it all into it. And that's what really made the difference, is because the edge, offenses and defenses were always really tight, but it's our special teams that really made a difference.
Jeff, what do you say is the thing that made Coach Devaney the great coach he was? Was there something, was it the individual understanding of the game? Was it his motivation? What made him the great coach that he was?
Well, first of all, I think he had an aura about him. I think he was kind of in that position where he was respected, but he had some great coaches.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and he let him coach.
Right.
And I think that's what kind of separated him from, being a person who had to control everything. But he was more of a manager and put people together, put them in the right places, and let them do their job. And I've always respected him for that. And I'm sure there's probably a few of us here today, I won't name any names, that probably, had Bob not been the kind of guy he was, and it would have been a different era, we probably would have never played again. So just because of things, the way things were back then. And Bob protected the players. He really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys.
One sidelight I was going to say, and I've told this to a lot of people. Kenny Claridge was the first great quarterback of Bob's coaching career in Lincoln. That's 63. And he was a dentist in Lincoln. He's since passed away, but he was a dentist in Lincoln. And so the years I was in Lincoln, I saw him. I used to sit next to him in basketball games. And I said, Danny, one night I asked him, I said, what changed? Because you'd heard stories about the 50s and losing, and once in a while they'd beat Oklahoma. But they had 4-hour practices and they scrimmaged on Friday and all this crap. And the guy, he said, he came in and he made football fun. That's all he did. 2-hour practices. They cared about you. I felt like they cared about us.
Yeah.
As individuals, And
It's not the quantity of the practice, it's the quality of the practice.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I was never on the football field longer than 2 hours and 15 minutes, unless I chose to be, catch more balls or something like that. But that spring and fall and first team against third team or scout team or whatever.
Yeah.
And you could count on that. It was consistent, and he was smart enough to hire Tom. That's what really got it going.
Yeah. You talk about having him as a wide receiver coach. You and Johnny obviously had him as wide receiver coach. Did you think at the time that this guy could be the head coach at some point? What was he like as a wide receivers coach?
Well, most of Bob's coaches could have been head coaches. That's the difference. They all of them were good enough to be head coaches. It's and take over at their
Quite a few of them
someplace
did
else.
end up being.
That was really the difference. The coaches, and he managed the coaches. He was the coach's coach, but the big thing is all the coaches got to do what they wanted to do. Tom ran the offense. He was became the offensive coordinator. He was my position coach initially.
Right.
And then he became the offensive coordinator. And you just had the confidence that when Tom called a play, it was going to work. That was their responsibility to be up there looking to see what the gaps were, what the holes were, what the opportunities were. And now's the time to make the move. And so it's one thing that if you have a coach that's calling the play and don't ever work, and you say, "Oh shit, not again." Well, when
It helps to have players. Don't get me wrong, but you gotta, once they gave the offense to Tom, and basically he called every offensive play from 1969 to 1997.
Yeah.
I mean,
There wasn't a lot of plays in our playbook.
Oh, there weren't a lot of plays?
yeah, there were plays that you hang your hat on.
Right.
There were plays for Johnny and plays for Jeff and plays for me and plays for the other fullbacks or whatever. But the best thing he did was if the play he called was dead, our quarterbacks had the ability to change the play at the line of scrimmage because they knew it was dead and they'd been coached to understand why it was dead, and we're going to switch to something else. And you're not going to switch to a touchdown.
No,
You're going to switch against to another play that isn't going to lose yardage.
correct me if I'm wrong, Guy. But someone told me, I heard somewhere that we were one of the very first teams around to use audibles. That we could come up to the line. We could call our whole offense from the line. We never really had to huddle.
I think I couldn't veritably say that, but when I met other people, like when I was a rookie with the Kansas City Chiefs for a short time, there was a receiver from Ohio State, and he was a really good receiver and had played on a national championship team when he was a sophomore. And I said, did you guys audible at all? And he said, no, we didn't audible. And the quarterbacks had to be coached to know what they were looking at. Because, and there were usually, on the quarterback test, there were usually 3 plays or 4 plays they were going to get out of against this defense. coverage or alignment up front, and then 2 or 3 options to go to. And, I asked Tom in later years, I said, how much were you audible in the 90s? And he told me, he said, we got to the point where we could audible with motion, which we'd never done before.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to audible the options. When you got option quarterbacks and you can get to the option whenever you want,
Right.
or whenever you think you have a chance. I mean, if you statistically did any research, I think you'd find out that our offenses made more yards against more people over a longer period of time than just about anybody.
The thing that surprises you if you go back and you look, and I've done this with something called success rate now, which means on first and second down, how successful you are completing a pass to get a first down, right? For the early down success rate. You guys, passing wise, were one of the most efficient teams. When we think of you running the ball, the I formation, or eventually Nebraska running the option, but they always were efficient passing because everybody was up trying to stop the run.
Well, Tom wanted to run the ball. I mean, he likes to throw it, but we only threw it 25 times. Now they throw it 50 or 60 times a game.
Right.
But you got 40 seconds to line up and figure out what you want to run with no clock running off, and that's an advantage for the offense, not the defense.
No doubt.
Well, our hurry up offense, we didn't have to huddle. We didn't huddle. We could just do audible down the field.
Right.
We could go the whole time and never huddle at all.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have obviously there's a lot of big games you played in, but is there one that comes to mind the most for you while you were at Nebraska? I mean, obviously you played for national championships, but are there any other games like during the regular season that really stand out?
Well, and I think about this question a lot because you get asked this question a lot. But what was so unique about the players at that time was that every week we played with a consistency that we weren't trying to prove, anything other than we're the best team. We had the best fans. We had the best team. Let's go out and execute. And it was so refreshing that Coach Devaney would say, okay, we have a lead at halftime, 35-0. And Bob would say, you guys put the ball in the end zone, you're done for the day. And so that was great fun. That was motivation right there. And so a lot of players got to play. So we created that depth and all that, which made us a better football team. So
the Monday practices were a lot of fun when we won big because everybody got to play. Everybody's parents got to see their son play.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. I mean, I thought about it more as a senior than I did as a sophomore.
Is there a game you can think of that stands out the most for you?
I think when I was a junior, the win at Oklahoma was a big deal to me. And I know it was a big deal to Bob because he'd been on the same field 12 months earlier and gotten beat 47-0. And then you're back in the same field and you win 44-14. And Bob looked pretty happy to me in the locker room after that game. Now, the only time he looked happier was when these two guys beat Alabama in 72.
Right.
He squared up a lot of things with Bear that night.
Right.
38-6. That tells it. I'm in Lincoln. It's 12 below zero. I'm in Lincoln watching on TV, and I'm absolutely beside myself because I know how good we are. I'm not a graduate assistant. I didn't make the trip, but I remember watching it and thinking, man, is this coming along at the right time?
Yeah. What do you remember from that game? The Alabama game.
Well, I know it was over at halftime. That's what I remember.
And we weren't playing.
I have to tell you, my biggest thrill of all the games and things we've been involved with was when we came back from a game. And that was after the Oklahoma game.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like 32,000 people, 30,000 plus people that showed up at the airport.
Wow.
And the plane couldn't even land. I mean, they landed, but they couldn't get close to
They couldn't taxi it close.
Yeah. And so they would let us out. And here are 30,000 people outside the airport. And you're walking through that crowd and talking to everybody. And that was a big thrill for me.
What about that? We did the trivia question. That last game you played where you scored the 5 touchdowns and did everything. You played a lot of running back in that game, Coach Tony?
Yes, you did.
What was that like?
Well, it was Bob's way of just giving me consideration since it was his last game and my last game that we wanted to go out with a bang. And so
I didn't let him play baseball either.
That's right. Don't forget about that.
But he did let him play I back that night.
there you go. I played I back, I played wing back, I played receiver. I think I even threw for a touchdown.
one, yep.
Threw for a touchdown that night. So we wanted to go out with a bang, and we did. And then we beat, beat Notre Dame.
Yep.
So that was our way of just saying goodbye and thank you to our fans, for coming because, you hear it all the time, but we do have some of the greatest fans ever. And they travel.
Yeah, they're right here.
They're right here.
On a Wednesday in the middle of nowhere.
Coliseum. I was telling people the other
That was a retired thing right there. You retired people like, I don't know what day it is.
Yeah.
Am I going to church today? That's all I know.
I'm here because I'm not playing golf.
There you go.
Too bad. But it's a big deal when you're playing in the Coliseum.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the biggest stadiums that they have in the whole country. And we have more red in the stadium in the Coliseum than they do at the SC. That's a big deal.
Yeah. What about now? Obviously, Guy, you have so much pride when you guys played, but now you say, hey, I played at Nebraska, and it's obviously been a while since Nebraska was Nebraska. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing now down there in Lincoln?
Well, I watched 5 plays of the first game, and it was we were on defense, and I'd seen enough. I'll tell you why, because they were hustling.
Yeah, they were.
They were hustling to the ball, all of them, and I hadn't seen that 7 or 8 years, maybe not even 20. And we don't have enough talent. That's why we're 3-3. But they got to get them here, and once they get them here with the new facility, the academic support, the nutrition, the weight training, all of that, you got a shot. And if this guy can do it at Temple and Baylor, he ought to be able to do it here.
Yeah.
Especially with $60 million from the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That takes care of a lot of situations. But they got to recruit. We just, when the all conference teams come out, we're not going to have very many people on.
No.
I'll be surprised if we have a second teamer.
How do you recruit?
But I don't know what you do.
just gotta sell it, right?
And I'll tell you something else, you guys.
Playing time.
I watched, I coached with Tom for 7 years after I played.
Right.
And those were the first years. And I know all about Oklahoma beating us and all that. Well, nobody was beating Oklahoma in those years. They were like we were in the 90s. That's exactly how they were.
Right.
But Tom was a relentless recruiter. I mean, relentless. All day, all the time.
Yeah.
Middle of the night, making phone calls, crisscrossing he visited every player that we offered in his home.
Yeah.
A lot of head coaches don't do that. They don't. I guarantee it. I know a couple of names that I wouldn't mention, but they never left town. They let the assistants bring them into town, and they recruited them when they were there.
Right.
And they didn't go get them. Well, when you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you got a kid in Toledo, Ohio, like Willie Harper, you go there. You get him. Willie Harper, I can't believe we got him out of Ohio. Willie played 12 or 13 years in the pros. Was he and Johnny and Jeff and Joe Blau the 3 best athletes I ever played with, period. Toledo, Ohio.
They got
How'd we get him?
Yeah.
Spider Adams is pretty good.
Same way. Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia.
Right.
Yeah.
Nebraska was one of the, along with Notre Dame, one of the first truly one side of the country.
Well, you
side of
have
the country
to.
recruit.
You have to. There's,
He's using my mind. I can't believe it. But who's the big, tall offensive tackle that you guys got out of California? He was a junior college guy, right?
Bob Newton.
Bob Newton, right.
He was a senior I
People
was.
are going to LA to get a guy like that to come there.
Right.
Yeah.
And he could have gone to Southern Cal.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how hard did they lose any sleep when they lost him? Probably not till they lined up on him in the Coliseum that night. Yeah. But that's part of it. And you have to be relentless. I'll give you a good example. On Sunday night, when you're working as a coach in Lincoln, at least in those days, and I was a freshman coach, so I didn't have any varsity direct responsibilities, but I was there. At 6 o'clock, they brought in dinner. Bob Logsdon and Bob Devaney would bring in dinner for all the coaches in the coach's office at 6 p.m. on Sunday. We'd eat dinner, sit around for a while. Tom went to his office, closed the door, and made phone calls for an hour. on Sunday night.
Yeah.
After we're done eating dinner, 7 o'clock, he's back, he's meeting. Another story, just because I remember these guys. It's the middle of November, and we're playing somebody, I don't know, I think it's 75 or 6 or 7. And it's 10 o'clock on Sunday night, or maybe Monday night. It's Monday night, because I work Monday night too. And we're standing out in the parking lot. There's 7 or 8 or 10 coaches standing around. We're all getting in their cars. We can't wait to get home, see our wives, see our kids, whatever it is. There's one guy that's got 3 rolls of film under his arm and a projector. Guess who that was?
Tom.
Exactamundo. Going home to watch film for another couple hours.
Yeah.
Well, what happened, you guys, wasn't an accident. He was that good.
Right. Johnny, you go down, you've been on a practice, you've talked to Coach Rule. Thoughts on the team currently?
Well, I think that they're going in the right. It looks like to me we have a pretty good team. I think we have some very good athletes. We have some very good athletes. I think we're short on good offensive and defensive linemen.
Yes, sir.
I think that went down to the field and I've made some comparison between the other team's offensive and defensive linemen, and they look like pros, and ours look like college players. And it's a really big difference, and it's what's up front that counts. Against Michigan, you can see clearly that when you're have an average of 5 yards a carry, it's because of your offensive line. And so you don't have a problem getting first downs, because you're getting 5 and 5 and 5 and 4 and 3 or whatever. And you have to have that, and you have to have that same type of attitude on defense, where you got guys that are big and fast and strong, and you're not going to let a team get a 5-yard average on you rushing the football. So everybody talks about our skill position, our star players, our quarterbacks, our running backs, wide receivers, but it's really those linemen. It's what's up front that counts.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? Any thoughts on the current program?
Well, I think we have some talented players. I don't think we have. It's going to take us a while to get to the level where we need to get to recruit, and it's just going to get harder with this nil.
Yeah. NIL stuff, yeah.
It's just going to get tougher, and it's almost like you go back to where you recruit, kids that aren't a 2 or 1 or 3, the kids you develop.
Right.
Kids like we used to talk about, we just reload on the offensive line, and they're typically walk-on kids from Nebraska or something like that, and just have the patience to develop those kids.
Right.
And then, I know guys, when we played, it wasn't like we were all-stars, but we were a good team.
Right.
Because we played well together, and you could trust each other. You could rely.
Right.
I could hit the hole going full speed and knowing that guy in front of me was going to be trying to block the guy. And my responsibility was just to read his block.
Right.
And I think that's the kind of confidence it takes a while to instill in players. So.
It takes a while to get it going, it just,
Yep.
It's like one other, and I just heard this 2 weeks ago, and I've been telling everybody I've ever known about it. I got to be quiet?
No, you go ahead. I raise your hand if you want to ask a question. You keep going, guy.
I was going to say that, and I don't know where I heard this. I think I heard it on the radio or somewhere, but there were 9 linemen at Michigan that were candidates or being screened to play in the Senior Bowl.
Right.
Now, in order to get in the Senior Bowl, guys, you got to be a relatively high draft choice type. You got to be a minimum of all conference. And they had 9 of them.
And Nebraska had.
I don't think we got one.
Right.
Not Bob Newton or Carl Johnson or John Dutton.
Right.
Or Richie Glover. Those guys all played in the Senior Bowl. We don't have those right now. It's going to take time to get them.
This is Dee from Lincoln. A question, behind the scenes, was there ever a quarterback controversy or just a battle between Taggy and Van Bronson?
Yes.
When Van Bronson was out late.
When Johnny was a sophomore and I was a junior, and when Johnny was a junior and I was a senior, they played about 50-50, pretty close. And one of them would bail the other one out one week, and then the next week, the other one would bail the other one out. And and they got about the same number of snaps in practice. People used to ask me, well, which quarterback did you like? Don't talk to me about that. The one that throws me the ball. doesn't throw it to Johnny. No, I mean, it was an impression that was irrelevant.
Right.
And I never even paid any attention. Whatever was in the huddle was the way it was going to be. So I don't think there was a quarterback controversy. I think it was a wonderful job of being able to play and coach and get two guys ready. And there's all those people out there that say, well, if you don't have a first team quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. Well, guess what? I saw it happen. They won 22 games between them those 2 years,
Right.
and a couple national titles. So I think I'm right and you're wrong.
Raise your hand if you want to ask a question. I'll come by with the microphone. Anybody? Oh, over that way.
No, they play-
Tell me while I'm walking
I
over,
never knew.
Guy, while I'm walking over, any good stories about Van Bronson in terms of going out? I heard he liked to go out a lot.
Man was very popular with the ladies. He made Johnny and I look like more son of the guns. Really, he did. And but he also, and I'm not speaking out of turn here because we all know this, he drank a little too much. And he quit cold turkey about, it's going on 30 years now. And I've been to 100 receptions with him where everybody's having a drink or a beer or whatever, and he's having a Diet Coke or a seltzer water or something else. And I played golf with him a week ago. Him and Tony Davis and Steve Roney and I, we had a riot. And Tony doesn't drink anymore either. So he's still with us. And if he hadn't quit, he'd been dead years ago. Wonderful athlete, good enough athlete to play basketball for Lincoln, in Lincoln. I went to one practice, and I saw him shoot a left-handed jumper coming down the left-hand side of the road, and I saw him shoot a jumper from the right side, right-handed, and you couldn't tell the difference. And he's a great golfer. He made All-State in football and basketball. He was a little spindlier than Taggy. Taggy's legs were like tree stumps, and he was a little more durable. And when Taggy was in 71, Van got hurt in the spring, hurt his throwing shoulder. It didn't really heal very well, and he became second team and still played a lot of football in 71 because basically they killed everybody. They would kill everybody we played. And but no quarterback contribution between those two, and people ask me about that all the time because they were both playing at the time. And I don't know how many one guy threw me versus the other guy. I don't care.
We'd like to thank you for coming to the Guy Ingles show.
Well, I got to stick up for the guys in 70 because they're not represented.
There's no controversy though.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Well, I didn't like you much.
What's your question?
All right. January 1 of 71 was one of the greatest days in the history of college football. Top-ranked Texas loses in the afternoon in the Cotton Bowl to Notre Dame. Then we shift to the Rose Bowl. Second-ranked Ohio State knocked off by Stanford. So it's all available to Nebraska the evening of January 1 of 71. How excited were you guys to play that game, knowing that? And number two, how excited were you guys after you won the game and clinched the national title? I found it to be extremely exciting. I was just a little kid. Thanks.
Did you guys know? You knew, right? I mean, not like we had internet back then. You knew that you were in position going in, right?
Oh yeah, they let us know that what the opportunities were at that time, and it just kind of fell in our lap. All we really had to do was win. So it really was a big deal just for things to fall in place like that.
Guy, you let Jeff answer now. You won't get in trouble. Go ahead, Jeff. What do you remember?
Well, I guess at the time it was kind of like we wanted to win the Orange Bowl because this is kind of the first major bowl that we've gone back to in a while, and so we had a great following. So it was more important for us just to win the game. That was just something that said, hey, now we got a chance to prove to the nation who we are. And we played a tough LSU team.
Yep.
And so it was a good football game, and I think Coach Devaney did a lot of politicking afterwards that said even the Pope couldn't vote for Notre Dame to win the national championship that year.
Hey, raise your hand if you have a question. We have a couple more left. A couple more minutes left. Anybody raise your hand? Anybody? No? All right. Tell us, guys, what are you guys doing now? Start off with you, Jeff. What are you guys doing now? Like, what do you do with yourself? What are your hobbies? What are you doing?
Well, I live in the Kansas City area now. I lived in Colorado for a while. I bought a farm here about a year ago. I'm raising some chickens on the farm. Actually, my son lives on the farm and he's kind of taking care of it. And both my son and son-in-law love to deer hunt. So they're getting that set up to do that now. But I still work. I still love to work. A lot of my clients are my friends too. So it just, at this point in my life, it's like, I don't want to retire. I want to keep working and I want to keep being active. I love to hunt. I love to fish. So just want to keep doing those things.
Nice.
Yep.
Johnny?
Well, we used to have the Jet Award Foundation and Trust. We have, we've created about 10, 11 years ago. I realized that the only category in college football that didn't have an award for was the punt return and kickoff guys. These guys running 100-yard touchdowns, and they didn't have an award for them. So we were lucky enough to be able to come up with an award called the Jet Award. And we call them the baddest male on the planet, because if you can run a 100-yard touchdown, you bad. You bad. And we take that money and partner with Metro Community College to give people scholarships in the trades. I went to Technical High School, which is the last big trade school that was in Omaha. And most of my friends went into the trades. And I've seen that there's quite an opportunity for young people to get quite a career if they will get into trades and to try to give trades the attention. We bring guys in each year and have an event. Last year, we had about 1,000 people attend. And this year, with your help, we hope to have about 2,000 attend. And we take that money to give scholarships for people from 18 to 60 to go into the trades. And we have a pretty good showing up of people having interest there to go, and hope we can continue it on with your support.
Done.
I've been retired for about 10 years. I drive a shuttle for Onyx Automotive 4 days a week from 7 to noon, and if the weather's good and I get the okay from the missus, I play golf. And I have 3 grandchildren, just a new one, about 7 weeks old, grandson. 2 daughters, both in Omaha, both married, and so far wonderful guys. We're happy about that. And I know Johnny's got a little bigger family than I, but when I'm not playing golf or driving for Onyx, I'm with my grandchildren.
I'm with my great-grandchildren. Bunch of them, too.
Yeah, you just went to, where'd you just go to?
Sacramento.
You went to Sacramento for one, yeah.
So my grandson had a baby shower for. I have about I can't even count. I must have like 20 grandchildren and great grandchildren.
Wow.
About 15 of them are here in Omaha.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How come no number showing up on the field? I mean, we could use some reinforcements.
They're all still pretty young.
Oh, okay.
They're on their way.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Jeff?
Well, I was just going to say that, can we talk about our grandchildren?
Yes, be my guest.
A person my age, that's all you talk about.
Right, sure.
Either that or health.
It's the weather, it's your health, and it's your grandkids.
I make fun of my grandma because you'd ask how she was, and an hour later, you still answering the same question. So,
Yeah. Again, about the Jet Award Foundation, the gala this year is going to be April 4th, next year, 2024. It'll be at Baxter Arena again this year, where we had it last year. It was really fun. Our Legends Award winner, this is the person who wins the award, who would have been a Jet Award winner back in his day, is DeJuan Gross from Husker this year. So we're very excited about that. And Danny Woodhead's going to be our guest speaker. So guy who probably should have gone to Nebraska, didn't quite get recruited.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this Jet Award you're talking about,
Yeah.
I don't know how Johnny ever returned kickoffs because I was back there with him,
Right.
and they always kicked it to me.
I wonder if that had something to do with scouting, Jeff.
That's all. How many I don't remember you really returning a lot of kickoffs, John. Did you return a bunch?
Didn't score many touchdowns.
That is true. Your defense is pretty good, yeah. Unless it's the beginning of the game.
Oh, I was back there all the time.
Yeah, microphone.
I got some run backs. Sometimes they made a mistake and kicked it over there, and we got it back. I got a few touchdowns.
John, you had a really good one against A&M, didn't you?
I think so, yeah.
Lincoln? Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, special teams. I did. People don't really realize I didn't really get the ball that much because we had a balanced offense.
Right.
So I didn't get the ball that much on offense. And I had a lot of time in special teams in the punt returns and kickoffs.
Right.
They did have plays for us for wing back and wide receiver. And then, like I said, especially in the Orange Bowl, when I was playing running back as well. But we had such a balanced team that we didn't go to anybody separately that much, except for Jeff, you know.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure we kept it consistently going up there. So we gave it to Jeff a lot, and he always came through.
Let me ask you before we end this, your thoughts on the new Big Ten. I mean, USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon all coming in. Thoughts on these teams that Nebraska will be playing? Some of you guys played in bowl games back in the day.
I think it's not going to be easy.
Oh, no.
That's being nice.
I am looking forward. I am looking forward to UCLA and SC playing in November somewhere up here in Big Ten country. And it's about 35 below zero, and they're not used to it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I think we have to get back to recruiting with the tenacity, with trying to convince people that they can really make a difference in our program.
Right.
That's the only way that we're really going to be able to get them to bring on the type of talent to compete with the USC and people that are coming here right now. Because right now we're struggling.
Yeah.
We're struggling because we're recruiting. We're struggling because we got to go like they used to inside people's homes and convince them that we can give your son a quality education and we can help them with that opportunity, their dream to get into the pros. And they can make the difference.
Right. Yeah. I think they have the assistants to do that now. I think that's the group they have is really good. A lot of them are young. We've done it in other places they've worked before, so I think we have the opportunity to have that with this.
That's what it's going to take.
Yeah. Everybody, 1971, Guy Ingles, Johnny Rogers, Jeff Kinney. All right, let's draw. We're going to draw for the tickets for Northwestern. I'm going to grab. Jeff, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Awesome.
If you're in Seward or Milford, listen up. Select Plumbing is now servicing your area with no trip charges from Lincoln. Select Plumbing works on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet and fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and